We're an experimental vineyard. We're one of 2 vineyards in the state of California, at least, that grow all 8 of the original red grape varieties that were approved back in 1855 for Bordeaux, France. And Bordeaux, the kind of grapes you can plant, regulated by law. I'm Ray Krause. My wife Tammy and I own and operate Westbrook Wine Farm, Vineyard and Winery. We are, first and foremost, a farm. The vineyard on the left is what we call the museum preserve. Tammy and I looked for 15 years to find the clonal selections that we planted in this vineyard. So there's 9 different clones of Cabernet Sauvignon, a grape called Gros Verdot, and a grape called Saint Macaire. And those obviously are 3 out of the 8 originally approved red varieties for Bordeaux. And the wine we make from that vineyard we call the museum. So that little line shack is the original winery. You know, when the feds give you a license, they don't tell you how big your winery has to be. So I built that myself, and that's where we made our wine until we built the building that is down below the hill. I was in the first degree course of enology at Fresno State back in 1963. What is that, 60 years ago? And about 30 years ago, I opened my textbook for the first time. Who knew, you know? Look at all this good information. There's a chart in there of the growing regions. Right below us at 3,650 would be Alexander Valley, Cloverdale, Sonoma. And it's those warm areas of Napa and Sonoma where I prefer my Bordeaux style or Cabernet based wines because they're just richer. There's nice fruit, great color, great body. That was 1995. Planted our Fait Accompli vineyard in 1997, which is planted to 6 red Bordeaux varieties. The vineyard at the end of the driveway is the Fait Accompli vineyard. If you remember your French 101, Fait Accompli is just an accomplished fact. Or if you're in O'Neill's, it's a done deal. That didn't sound too sophisticated, so we called it Fait Accompli, which is a legal term too. It means an inarguable fact. Fait Accompli is 6 different grape varieties originating from Bordeaux: Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and Carmenere. And what we'll do with those grapes, and we will do with those grapes, instead of making 6 different wines and blending them to taste, so today's wine tastes like last year's wine, we celebrate the vintage variations. We don't know what we're going to get because we harvest them all on the same day, and we crush them into a common fermenter. So they co-ferment. So instead of blending finished wines to taste or, you know, to specs, the vineyard decides what we get every year. And it's called co-fermentation. So a co-fermented field blend, not a winery blend of wines. And we call it Fait Accompli. Old vineyards, like old winemakers, they change their expressions with age. Sometimes for the better, not always. And but same vineyard, same yeast strains. Today there's probably 3,000 variations, all with different kinetics and different flavor profiles. So we've kind of learned which ones to use with which varieties, and we stick with those. Our barrels, barrels are important. You can't just use any old barrel. The first year, 1999, we had them custom made. They were 50% French oak and 50% American oak in the same barrel. They'd never done that before. Now it's common, all barrel makers, they make what they call a hybrid barrel. That is either Eastern European oak or French oak or American oak. This is all Cabernet Sauvignon. You can see they're pretty happy for being old vines. This is Cabernet Franc. Nice loose bunches, so they're not growing and pressing against one another and actually crushing each other, which allows the juice to come out. And because the air is always rife with yeast spores, it'll start fermentation on the vine. You know, grapes don't need man to make wine. And once it becomes alcohol, then there's as many acetobacter spores out here, and it converts the alcohol to acetic acid, which you know is vinegar. As a winery, I wanted it to be like, probably for myself, to be like it was when I was coming up in the business back in the 60s, where you'd go in and sit down with Joe Heitz, or you'd go and sit down with Samuel Sebastiani and taste their wines, often in their living room or outside the winery. We're not an event center masquerading as a winery. We're not a wine bar, and I don't think all the customers today know the difference. We are a wine tasting facility by appointment only. And that's so if someone thinks enough to make an appointment, I don't have a busload of tourists interrupting their experience. Plus, it helps Tammy and I with a life in balance. We can be open when we choose to, and we're gratified with a lot of people wanting to come and taste wine here. Our wine lineup, we started out with the Blanc de Noir, which is 100% Madera Barbera from Lori's Vineyard. It's located out on Avenue 12 and Road 21.5 in Madera. Lauren and Lori Freeman are the farmers. Next one is our Sangiovese. Obviously, Italian derivation. This vineyard is on Howard Road, going outside of Madera County or Madera City. And the vines, the cuttings for this vineyard were brought over in 1937 in Grandpa Salai's suitcase and planted in 1937. So this is old vine Sangiovese. It's not like any other grape. It's got a real zing to it because it has a naturally high fruit acid in the grape. Makes it great with heavily garliced Italian food, you know, and green bell peppers. The next one is called Le Derrière Rouge, because gimmick wine labels give me the red ass. I came up with a Le Derrière Rouge label, and it's not sexist, it's not la, it's Le Derrière Rouge. It's pretty serious wine. It's old vine Zinfandel from the Salai Vineyard in Madera. We had 3 rows of this, and we made it 1 year. And it's made in the old school style. It's not that jammy, high alcohol, woody, tannic, late harvest, trying to be a Cabernet Sauvignon Zinfandel. Zin to me has always been more like a Pinot Noir. Big mouthful of wine with no bitterness, a lot of smoothness, a lot of flavor. So old vine Zinfandel with a goofy gimmick label. Then we have the same grape as this, same vineyard, but different procedure where we ferment with the skins, seeds, pulp, and juice instead of just juice. And of course give it more barrel time, pardon me, in the barrel. So Madera Barbera. I've always wanted to make a Malmsey, a Madeira style fortified. Fortified means brandy added. Like I said, the English are the ones that coined the phrase Malmsey, or the name Malmsey, because they couldn't say Malvoisie, which is the name of the grape. Here we call it Malvasia Bianca. That's the California name for this grape. And there are 70 only vines of this in Madera County that we were able to find. And we got it for a couple of years. We made the wine, we shocked it, we put it in barrels, and left it in the original little winery building up there for 10 years. Never pulled the bung, never tasted it, just left it. And it went through 10 95-degree summers. Because part of the process with Malmsey isn't just aging it for 10 years, it's the heat, which while it's aging, caramelizes the sugars. So you wind up with this caramelized pecan flavor with a little bit of a blood orange finish. We call it Malmsey Dearest. But back in the 1700s, the English owned all the shipping lanes and all the wine trade in the whole world, and their bad teeth, they couldn't say Malvoisie, so they just slurred it and said Malmsey, and it became Malmsey. And it was Ben Franklin's favorite wine, because he only drank sweet wine according to the literature. It was Thomas Jefferson's favorite dessert wine, and it was used to toast the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So it has some history, and no one's ever really made one. A Malmsey in California, it just takes too long. Now, I'm not going to make another one because I don't have that long, but it turned out very nice. I'm glad to say it could have been a bust, but it wasn't. So.